registration. Ok, professeur, nous allons commencer. Le CIE en Chine actuellement, il va nous rejoindre avant la conclusion pour quelques mots.
Ok,
On va éviter de faire attendre tous les gens. D'accord.
d'accord.
Ok. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellency, respected Professor Yuba Sokona, dear participant and dear colleague, Assalamu alaikum and good morning or good afternoon, depending by your location. One of the great leaders in the world said, may your choice reflect your hopes, not your fear. It is with this statement of Nelson Mandela, I would like to welcome you to this webinar entitled Prospects for Climate Resilience, Developing and Just Energy Transition in OIC Region. Before commence this section, let us place it under the control of most merciful, the most compassionate, through a few verses of Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallahu khair. Ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, we will now move to our special guest, Professor Dr. Yuba Sokona. He was the former Vice Chair of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. He is a prominent figure in the field of energy and sustainable development and climate policy, particularly in Africa, and still involved in various initiatives and organizations affiliated with a prestigious academy, including the World Academy of Science, TWICE, and the African Academy of Science. Now, Professor Yuba is leading the interim board of African Institute of Sustainable Energy and System Analysis. Dear Professor, the floor is yours for your lecture. Thank you.
Okay. Uh, can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
And can you see also the screen?
Yes, but we are in your email.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Thank you and greeting from Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. I just came to Burkina Faso and then to have some discussion of with number of us there regarding climate development.
Yeah, Professor, your screen,
Yeah.
we are in your email, your Gmail. So can we find the presentation?
Because sorry, let me, because what I did, I shared the screen and for me, it's working. Do you see it?
Yes, now it's fine.
Okay. Okay, so as I said, that greeting from Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, where I'm on mission. I would like just to introduce some element of prospect for climate resilient development and just energy transition in the OIC/African countries. I think that what I will presenting, where the focus on Africa is relevant to all the OIC country in large. And I'm really grateful that for giving that opportunity and then to have that conversation. And I visited, the committee few years back when I was invited by a friend of mine who is Pakistanis, which is Tariq Banouri. And good again to come and then to be there virtually. And I will start with an observation. You all know that the world is in a big need, big and urgent need for transformative solutions that can bind the trajectories toward a more sustainable future with greater well-being for all. Adequate, reliable, affordable energy service is a critical prerequisite and then for human development, for well-being, as well as prosperous economic development and job creation. And developing countries in general have a pressing need to address access to energy services through rapid, wide-scale expansion, both electricity generation capacity on-grid and off-grid, and the supply of other form of energy. And then I think that Pakistan have made a tremendous boom on that. And then we need to learn from what happened there. And if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the seven that aim to close the energy access gap, ensure access to affordable energy and all through a well-being, this very important element. And climate change is a fundamental threat to development, sustainable development, and the fight against poverty. And the state of environment, the knowledge about climate change has been captured by the current state, by the last report of IPCC, while IPCC is working on the seventh report, and the sixth assessment report have clearly indicated in terms of climate science, in terms of impact, adaptation, vulnerability, in terms of mitigation, and we had also produced three special reports, one on ocean cryosphere in a changing climate, one on climate and land, and one in global warming of 1.5. And then what those reports tell us? It tells us that the recent changes in the climate are widespread, rapid, and intensifying, and unprecedented in thousands of years. It is indisputable, the report and clearly indicated with evidence on different elements that human activities are causing climate change, making extreme climate events, including heat waves, heavy rainfall, drought, more frequent, severe, and severe. And I think that we have all seen the flooding that happened in Pakistan. And unless there are immediate, rapid, and large-scale reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, limiting warming to 1.5 will be beyond reach. And all the evidence we have actually said that we will not comply with 1.5 degrees. And then the climate, we experience in the future depend on our decision now. And as a clearly, if I want to resume everything that has been captured in these 7 years of work of IPCC or activities and the thousands of pages of document, it clearly indicated that 4 system transition are required: rapid, far-reaching transition in energy, land, urban infrastructure, including building, transport and building, and industrial system. But those transitions have to be rapid, far-reaching, and unprecedented. And that captures everything that has been said in the situational report of IPCC. And what do we know about Africa? Africa faces the extra burden of climate change because parts of Africa have warmed by more than 1.5 degrees already, increased exposure and vulnerability. But we have also experiences that also many parts of the developing world, the global south, other existing challenges. Yet Africa is responsible only under 4.4% share of global carbon dioxide emission. We can see the fast urbanization. We can see also have abundant diverse energy resources. We can see also the opportunity for climate resilient, low carbon, zero development option in Africa because we are in early stage of development. And there are a number of unfulfilled African development aspirations, such as how we can reduce or eliminate the extreme poverty in all its forms. And the industrialization is one of the key aspirations of the continent as a whole. Rapid and sustained economic growth is important for the continent. And achieve higher per capita income is a prior necessity for the continent. And the full employment, particularly the youth, is one of the most important and challenge in the continent is facing actually. And then a greater distributional equity is essential in the continent. Because as you can see, all those issues and many others require extra attention as well as climate, environmental sustainability, that also very important. All those are linked to the climate, and the climate create much more difficulties in achieving those key aspirations of the continent. And if we look at the continent also, Africa's staple narrative is a paradox of plenty because the continent has large untapped resources. Already, investors perceive them to be risky. According to the UN, Africa holds 30% of the world mineral reserve. The continent is a producer of minerals such as cobalt, chromium, manganese, titanium, diamond, uranium, and so on and so forth. There are many others. 80% of natural gas, 12% of the oil, 12% of the world hydropower potential are in Africa, 65% of the world uncultivated arable land, and 10% of renewable fresh water as in Africa, particularly in the Sahara area. Those are huge water resources that has not been yet contaminated by the microplastic, all exist in the region. And if we look at also the region, there are a number of structural crises the continent is facing. And then those, one have to look at what are the origin of those structural crises that create a huge problem in the continent. One have to interrogate the history, particularly the colonial system that molded Africa society to meet labor and metal and material need of the Western industrialization and development. And then still, this is a fundamental problem the continent is facing. But the post-colonial effort to correct these imbalances, increase independence, and nurture infant industry were curbed by energy crisis, indebtedness, and structural adjustment program policies. And we are still facing a major destruction of the continent through the social adjustment programs. And then today, African countries continue to depend on exporting only primary products, resulting in economies that are fragile, vulnerable to shocks, and highly dependent on external factors. And if you saw this view graph, Africa faces three main structural deficiencies which create a vicious circle of indebtedness. Because that is a fundamentally critical element. Unless we get out that trap, there is no way of development for the continent, no way of the well-being of the people. What are the three critical structural deficiencies the continent is facing? The first one is a lack of food sovereignty. The second one is related to lack of energy sovereignty. And then the last one is low value added content of export relative to import, as you can see in this view graph. All those are interrelated. Those are some of the critical elements the continent need to face. And then the climate came on top of that, and then to make things much more harder, much more difficult. And if I just have a spotlight on the energy, and then if you look at the total energy capacity, sorry, the total energy installed capacity of electricity in Africa is 100 gigawatt in 2021. This is less than what Belgium is having, or Spain. And Sub-Saharan Africa has the lowest per capita electricity consumption, but set at less than 500 kilowatt per person per year. What can you do with that? It is not only limited access of electricity, it's also highest frequency of power outages. And I'm from Mali. Recently in Bamako, if you have 5 hours of electricity per day, you are very lucky. And then also in the continent's high dependency of traditional biomass for cooking. Africa is the only continent every year more people cook with firewood and charcoal than other fuel. And then that creates a huge problem of health, a huge problem of land degradation, deforestation, and biodiversity destruction. And currently 600 million lack electricity and 970 million clean cooking. And then by 2030, that means in less than 5 years, about 600 million will be without access, and 1 billion cooking with those traditional. And then those are some of the very important. And then we know also in the continent, absence of both long-term energy planning driven by research and evidence from local institutions. Just let me. Okay, and then there is a need also of deconstructing the energy narrative of the continent that is characterized by what they mean by energy access, by fragmentation and ad hoc and piecemeal approach. Electrification sometimes is only related to lighting. Lighting is not is part of electrification, but it's not electrification. Cannot be reduced to electrification. And then they also indicate in the non-productive sector. That is the focus of most of the part. And then the only continent where we say that the private need to become in, the private sector focus, not the other, the control the neoliberal dogma. While in the other continent, in other part of the world, at the same situation in Africa, it is not the private who bring the changes that is required, it's the government, the state. And then finance became an important issue. We forget everything we said that we focus on finance. That is a certain thing on the current narrative. And it's important to reverse and then to deconstruct that narrative and then to bring the new narrative. That means energy for development. As energy is not an end by itself, energy is an enabler, is a key prerequisite. And then there is a need of leapfrogging and then to take advantage of the later of the come laters, because we can benefit from the mistake that has been made elsewhere, because we are in the early stage of development in the continent. And there are a number of key principles in order to be able to have this kind of new narrative. that ensuring African ownership and agency in energy initiative and plan, that is fundamental and critical. Just not only Africa, is all global South. And integrating energy system into design into a wider development objective and planning, because we are not pursuing energy by itself, how energy can be part of critical well-being increase of the majority of people. Establishing clear energy policy priority, such as support of clean cooking, diversification, energy generation, and ownership. Some of you have been in Dubai at the COP, and some of you have read, some of you have seen some of the publication related to that. And then the focus were phasing out the use of fossil fuel, but no one addressed critically the phasing out the use of charcoal and firewood for cooking. That is an African issue. Providing scope for delivery of energy as a common good, ensuring stakeholder participation, equity, and sufficiency in terms of energy use. And as I indicated, Africa has a huge potential of renewable energy. And then it has a continent, the most favorable condition for harnessing renewable energy with potential for outstripping into projected need. Africa has an estimated 10,000 gigawatt of solar, 1,750 gigawatt of hydropower potential is less than 12% of that potential that has been currently used, and 500 gigawatt of wind potential. So the potential, this is not a problem of availability and the potential of energy. And this was the kind of paradox, while the continent, many people do not have access to energy services. And it's require a new approach. And then the new approach, the Africa transition, what it looked like, what it should be in the continent, and then for a clear transition. It leapfrogging investing in the future. That's very important. New thinking is needed, placing the context at the heart of the decision. Focusing on the people, focusing on the issues, rather than focusing on energy. That's very important. A new energy systems is required that is flexible, scalable, modular, prefabricated, with technological engineering and social innovation. That's much more important. Harnessing renewable energy potential for development, phasing out the use of firewood and charcoal for cooking, at least by 2040 is preferably earlier, is very important for the continent. And addressing energy access is complex exercise involving balances across various dimensions, such as energy system and energy sources. One have to combine the two. If you see, you can look at this V graph. The left side is a current and traditional and energy system that is exclusive. Will never have, if you follow that kind of scheme. In the right side is much more integrated, diversified, because one is very important to understand the need of contextualizing the energy access, understanding categories, scale, type, and magnitude, a respective role of various energy systems in a specific context, because context matter. The readiness of supply and end-use energy technology and to prevailing conditions, policy and regulation for energy access. A myriad of policy instruments and regulation are widely used, and then we need to take that benefit. And energy depriving population, energy deficient population, energy insecure population, all those different elements need to be identified, clarified, and to see what responses can be provided in designing the energy system. That has to be one of the critical elements in designing energy system. Africa leapfrogging to new smart people-centered energy system is very important and crucial. As we know, the solar, it can be one of the key elements of that. Why? Because solar energy is a key driver for the transition. because solar energy is an important part of renewable energy mix. It is suitable for household, agriculture, industrial, and utility scale electricity generation, and is also a valuable source of heat and light. You can use solar to produce 3 watt to charge a torch or more than 100 megawatt and then to power a city. The technology required to utilize solar can be deployed at almost any scale, as I indicated, from 3 watt or less than 3 watt to more than 100 megawatt. Unlike most competitive sources of energy, solar can be deployed at the same location as or very close to users. Like other technology, the price came down with increased deployment and learning. As such, we can only expect solar to become most cost competitive. As you can see, in the middle of we are in the middle of energy and energy technology cost revolution. The onshore wind, the price get down by 57%. The offshore wind, 73%. Solar, 80%. Batteries, 80%. If you look at the figure, and then from 2012 to 2022, in 10 years, as you can see, the decline of those key elements. And then we have also exponential energy challenges in all around the world. As you can see, the took off of solar in various locations, in various domains. If you look at the wind generation, the solar generation, the annual electric vehicle cells, and then the annual battery storage cells, we look at the statistics of export of solar panel in Africa during the past 12 months, and it's the equivalent of 60 megawatt, and those are not through project, those are not through any government policy, those are not through any private lending. It's only people in the country that imported. That is exactly the same thing that happened, the boom of solar in Pakistan. That was not through a critical policy. It's only people who imported. Those are very important element and sign. And there is a need of system change to have an holistic energy planning, integrating various systems and oriented approach toward demand side approach, because we traditionally look at the supply oriented side, and that is a centralized system. While we have the opportunity with renewable, in particular solar, and then to focus on demand approach, resulting in a new, efficient, distributed, people-centered energy model, responding to the various needs, all kind of demand, driving productive sector to meet development needs, climate action as a core benefit in the context of Africa. We're not primarily bringing the climate angle, we need the development first, and how to make that development compatible with climate. There is a need of democratization of the energy system, and then to democratize development, to avoid any kind of centralization, and then supporting cooperative and community. It's in Africa, all the discussion in many developing countries, the private sector, private finance. While in the other part of the world, I lived in Switzerland for almost 10 years. Switzerland and Germany are the two countries where there is a huge amount of cooperative. If you see in Africa, they thought that, no, we don't need cooperative, that is communism. While in the North, there are a lot of cooperative. And then who did the rural electrification in the US? Those were cooperatives. And then development and strong institutions are needed, and strong communication and coalition building effort, and then to new awareness and system level changes that is required. And there is another guiding principle that is very important. The African leadership, political agenda, social transformation, mobilizing the continent energy resources, pragmatic approaches rather than project-oriented, development agenda, and then precondition social environmental safeguard, horizontal scanning is important multi-stakeholder environment engagement is fundamental. New kind of partnership, including South-South cooperation, and I think that OEC countries is one of the key elements where they can stimulate the South-South cooperation. And number of initiatives are very important, as I indicated. The cooking transition, agricultural value chain transformation, structural transformation, electrification, the transport to address not only the climate, but to address also air pollution aspect, particularly in the cities. Development energy scenarios for Africa, rethinking the recomposition and institutional architecture is very important, preparing water platform and communication. And it's important and to mobilize the various stakeholders, particularly the three clusters, policy community from the local to the national, the regional level, and the research community, the knowledge community, universities, research institutions, and consultants, and the practice community, and then business community, civil society organization, and CEO, and then to have a permanent dialogue navigating between all of them, and then for each of them provide what they can in this fundamental required transformation. And there are some key questions to address if we want to implement those perspectives. What is the time horizon for African energy system transition? Which sector should be prioritized depending on the country? How to address the fossil fuel dilemma, because after discovering also oil and gas, how those can be abandoned or not abandoned. What lesson can learn and then from the outcomes of constant various initiatives in place? What lesson can be learned from elsewhere? And how to organize the participation of the stakeholder? Those are very important questions. And one have to have in mind, this is the publication we made at the Climate Summit in Africa in Nairobi. In Africa, climate, energy, and development are closely intertwined. We cannot separate them. They have to be addressed at the same time. And in that perspective, that is, we launched the African Institute for Sustainable Energy and System Analysis, creating the African energy system for sustainable development as a key objective. And that is, to ensure that the need of Africa will be built on a strong, lasting energy institution, and then to make sure also that to ensure the clear African ownership of knowledge leadership, and then to ensure also that evidence-based country-specific energy for development pathways is critical. This some of the reason why I'm here in Burkina Faso, and I'm to have a conversation of different actors that involve on climate development and energy issues. And the aim of the ICESA, the African Institute for Sustainable Energy and System Analysis, is to become a premier institution to enable evidence-based energy system decision and drive development in Africa. Create as a vision, create an institutional landscape in which African countries have the right human institutional capacity to develop and set development, implementation, their own energy enabled system development. And the approach will be the regional hub in Africa, unite top African international scholars and to produce agenda setting, policy relevant knowledge and design energy system for sustainable development, having in mind capacity is not the ability of implementing someone else's agenda, but the ability to set and pursue your own agenda. And in that sense, it should be a core element of any development narrative. And the ICSA has 5 cluster of activities: energy pathway for development, optimal implementation approaches, third, policy and governance, for access to affordable finance, and one of the cross-cutting building institutional and skills in Africa, working from the communal, national, and Pan-African level with number of partnership also. And the way forward, some key element is how can we collectively stimulate the political will, the system leadership, which with clear vision of energy for development in Africa, Uh, how can we orient innovative institutions and to deliver this vision? And how access resources to support the required transformation? And then how the most more important and critical element, how can we permanently link short-term and long-term imperative? Some of the time we have the tendency to focus on short-term, abandoning the long-term. And sometimes if you look at the long term and then you cannot deal with short term, the pressing need. And then those are certain things we need to think of. And then those are some of the elements I just want to bring to your attention to stimulate the conversation. And thank you again for giving me the opportunity and then to have that conversation with you.
Thank you, dear Professor. Finally, I would like to inform you that His Excellency, Professor Iqbal Chaudhry, Coordinator General of WISE Comstech, join us. So the credit of this gathering go to the wonderful scientist, His Excellency Professor Iqbal Chaudhry, and respected Professor Yuba Sokona, who are perfectly convinced that only hard work and commitment can create new generation with knowledge, creativity for achievement of sustainable development goal. Dear, dear Professor, the floor is yours for the few words.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Akim. Thank you very much, dear brother, academician, fellow of the World Academy of Sciences, Professor Dr. Yubo Sukuna. This was a fascinating presentation covering all major aspects of energy transition, the challenges and opportunities, not only for Africa, but also for the developing world. I'm extremely impressed. I'm in northeast of China, where temperature is below 20, minus 20, and extremely cold here. I just came back from the university where they wanted me to be to attend a meeting of the health experts in the field of traditional medicine. But let me tell the audience that I met Dr. Yuba in Brazil when we were together in Rio, and I was extremely impressed from his personality, his achievements, and most importantly, his passion for promoting science and technology in the continent of Africa and world as a whole. And most importantly, what I was very touched that his knowledge and understanding of energy was just absolutely phenomenal. He could speak about energy from the depth of his heart's issues and all of it. And today we have witnessed this wonderful presentation. I would really like to thank him and thank my colleagues at the Comstech for organizing this excellent presentation of one of the leaders of African science. And I sincerely hope that he would be able to visit us in Islamabad, where we hope to have more people gather around him, because his personality is not only represent knowledge, but also he's an inspiration for the whole generation. So kindly accept my greetings and gratitude for this wonderful presentation and for sparing time from your very busy schedule. I know that you are traveling in many places between Europe and Africa, and that you have done phenomenal work for everyone in Africa as a whole. We look forward to have your contribution towards Organization of Islamic Cooperation also. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor. Professor Sokona,
Yeah. No,
you
it's
have.
really a pleasure, and as I said, that's an honor. And then I was not expecting, and then to this, invitation. I know that when we had a chat in Brazil with Professor Chudari, and I get a sense that that will happen because he did not say me anything. And then when I receive, I know that, but I cannot say no because, as I indicated, I have very, very good close friends of Pakistan. I already mentioned Tariq Banouri. I mentioned also Salim Ali and Najam, Adil Najam. And then they are the one who brought me Pakistan most of the time in Islamabad, but it will be a pleasure for me and then to go back again and then to make the connection. Particularly, we have to stimulate the South-South cooperation in the OEC country and then to use Comitech for that.
Okay, inshallah, we hope to host
Uh,
you in comstech soon.
I just wanted to mention that under the OIC 15 dialogue platform, the 15 most proficient science and technology member states of OIC, we have a committee on renewable energy and energy mix. And I think I would really like to officially request Professor Yuba to chair that meeting. And I would, at some point of time, very soon, send an official letter of invitation for him to lead who I see in this very important endeavor. Thank you very much, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Now we have some few questions for our special guest, a special speaker. Please, keep going.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I have one question, that is, if energy access is a system rather than the sector, what part of that system is most underestimated today?
I did not get clearly the question.
Okay.
Can you get a bit closer to the microphone?
Okay. If energy access is a system rather than the sector, so what part of that system is most underestimated today?
I think that depending on the country, and then we produce a paper in Nature Energy and then to inform the COP in Sharm el Sheikh, and then to say that, many people say that the global South is not a village. Africa is not a village. And then the energy system that's required in a country like Burkina Faso completely different of the energy system that's required in a country like Ethiopia or in a country like South Africa or in Benin, because we need to contextualize. Depending on the context, and then the issue and then the sector are important. Some of the countries, the livelihood and productive sector, such as agriculture, small scale farming, is much more important. While in a number of other countries, what is very important is the mining sector. And depending on the comparative advantage of the countries, because there's no blueprint, and then that goes through different countries in the continent or in the OIC countries. We need to contextualize. That is some of the key misses. But what we know for sure is that the small scale productive sector is one of the most important element. And then the lack of productive sector in many African countries. And then the household, I said that we need to go beyond lighting and then to bring in, and that is required to completely revisit the whole notion of energy access. Because sometimes we limit the energy access only on the energy system, and then we do not look beyond that. We go not look at the end use equipment that are as much important. One can't have electricity if you don't afford to have refrigeration. You cannot benefit from of electricity for cooling.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
There is another question.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor, for the wonderful presentation. So I would like to ask, what form of capacity building initiative should Africa pursue to promote long-term sustainable energy transformation?
I think that Africa need much more strong institution rather than any kind of internal capacity to build institutions. We recently launched a call because we are having recruiting postdocs, 5 postdocs, because we want to have the postdoc in each of the clusters. I indicated the 5 clusters. We launched the call for recruiting 5. We get 500 applications in 2 months. That means the PhD, the African PhD, 500 for 5 positions. And that means it's not a problem of capacity of individual, it's a problem adequate institution to have at each the regional level as well as at the country level.
Okay. Thank you.
Professor, I have another question. That is, if Africa use just 20% of solar potential, how would be that affected of global changes of the global solar panel system?
No, I think that the problem of renewables, in particularly the solar, is that depend on equipment. There is a wide range of resources. You will not exhaust the use of resources because it's a potential. It's not a stock. It's a potential that makes the big difference between fossil fuel and the renewables.
Yes.
That means perpetuating it exists. While the stock, if you if you take, and then it will diminish. That will not diminish.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for your answer and question.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Dear participants, we have reached the end of this section. We believe that this concept on climate resilience and energy transition will be extremely useful for the sustainable development in OIC member state and in OIC observer state. We, on behalf of comstech staff, we really great our estimate guest, Professor Yuba Sokona, and we hope to host him in comstech headquarters in Islamabad, inshallah. And we wish you best and stay blessed, dear Professor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And it
you.
was really a pleasure.
Thank you.